Good evening, students. We are going to be discussing the 9th standard model answer paper of your first examination. So, children, as you can see, this was the chapter which we had covered, that was Earth as a planet, geographical grid, that is latitudes and longitudes, and rotation and revolution as well, right? So, depending upon those chapters, you have been tested upon, and this is the answer to it. So, children, we'll have a small discussion over it, right? So the very first question what they've asked you is, what is biosphere? Now, children, remember one thing, whenever you're writing down the answer, these are important points what you need to point it out. For example, when they say biosphere, biosphere is a narrow realm of contact. Very important word. Narrow realm of contact is a very important choice of words. And of course, followed by interaction between atmosphere, lithosphere, hydrosphere. The moment you write down this is where you score the very first mark. Second, life exists within the junction of these three realms. Within biosphere, life is found chiefly in two forms, plant kingdom and animal kingdom. Now, this is where you get your second mark, right? So, if it's asked for 2 marks, these are the 2 points you need to cover. In case if it's asked for 1 mark, then you have to write down at least the first point, at least a life exists within the junction of these three realms. Till there, for 1 mark, it is sufficient, right? So, let's move to the next question, children. Name the conditions necessary for life on Earth. So these are any of these 2 points is okay. Okay, you can write down any 2 points amongst these 4. For example, the Earth is an optimum distance from the Sun, hence it is neither too hot nor too cold. Second, this makes life possible on the Earth. Third, the Earth's atmosphere is made up of life-supporting gases like nitrogen, oxygen, and carbon dioxide. Fourth, the atmosphere also prevents the loss of heat from the Earth's surface and helps to keep the Earth warm. In my opinion, any of these first 3 points, preferably, since they are very simple, if you are writing down any of these 2 points out of these 3, is ideally expected from you, and I would also highly recommend that, right? So that is again another 2-mark question. Ideally, we expect 2 points to be written for that. Remember one thing, children, under any circumstances, if it's a 1-mark question, you may stick to 1 statement. If it's a 2-mark question, you can stick to 2 statements. There might be selective answer where you may add up the third one. That's okay. That's completely fair enough. But ideally, this is how the entire, the understanding of answer to be written is to be considered, right? Let's come to the C question. Give the distinctive features of the Earth as a unique planet. So again, it's a 2-mark question. Any of these 2 points is okay. The Earth is an optimum distance from the Sun, hence it is neither too hot nor too cold. The same point can be repeated out here too. Likewise, second, the Earth is the third planet from the Sun. It has an average temperature of 17 degrees Celsius, which is suitable for all life to exist. Again, 2 simple points, out of which 1 is repetitive. Third one, the atmosphere receives the heat from the Sun by solar radiation and loses the heat by the Earth's radiation. In this way, the balance of heat is maintained. Fourth, the Earth's atmosphere is made up of life-supporting gases like nitrogen, oxygen, and carbon dioxide. Other gases include helium and argon. Now, if you notice closely, children, the 4th point and the previous answer's 3rd point are same. That means the answer of the B and the C are quite relatable to each other, right? So any of these 3 points, that's the reason why I insisted the first 3 points, if you usually see, even the 4th point to a certain extent is resembling to the next point. But at least the first 3 points also, if you can write down out here, it will be given correct. All right, going to the 5th point. The ozone present in the Earth's atmosphere absorbs the harmful UV rays of the Sun. The atmosphere also prevents the loss of heat from the Earth's surface and helps to keep the Earth warm. So again, children, any of these points, any of these 2 points or higher than 3 points is more than enough for a 2-mark answer, right? So that's how. If you see, the choice of the words are very important. Please stick to the language what has been portrayed out here. That is going to be fetching you a lot of marks. So let's go to the next question, children. Briefly describe the shape of the Earth. That's a D question, if you can see out here. Now again, in my opinion, you should always write down the answers in points. It is quite easy for them to correct. Okay, the more you write down in points, the better it is. It gives you a clarity, and moreover, it is easy for the corrector to correct the paper as well. The moment you write down in paragraph, it makes it a little difficult for them to read the entire statement. I'm not saying it is wrong, but this is again a suggestion from my end, as you might be knowing that you're writing a board examination this year too. So there is a format which is to be followed upon as per the council's recommendations. So looking at that, let's discuss the answer. Earth as a planet is a round object in space that moves around the sun, that is a star, and receives light from it. Its diameter varies at the equator and at the poles. Its diameter at the equator is 12,756 kilometers, while its polar diameter is 12,714 kilometers. Children, remember one thing, these are very important points. And again, if you're in case, if you feel that you're making a mistake, you're not able to recollect or remember, avoid writing that point. Because if you make a mistake out there in terms of the diameter for equator or polar diameter, and if you go wrong, the chances are quite high that they will give you wrong as an entire answer. If you feel you don't remember this point, it's okay. You can avoid it. Go to the next point. The difference in diameter is due to the centrifugal force of the Earth's rotation at a great speed, which forms a bulge at the equator and a compression at the poles. So the Earth indeed is an oblate spheroid. Any 2 points out of these will be considered. Sorry, pardon me. Any of these 2 points can be considered while writing down this answer. Right? I hope, children, you are making this understand that they are quite important for you to make a note of it. Let's go to the second question, children. Now, why diametrically opposite lines of longitude and the equator are called as a great circle? So again, over here, so I would recommend you to write down points wherever it is possible. As far as possible, please write down in points. That'll be very, very, very helpful and beneficial for you. Right? All right, students. So coming to the answer, just to remind you, when it comes to the great circle, by the way, it is omitted from your syllabus due to, of course, you might be knowing that there has been a lot of recent reductions which have been happening. So indeed, this is supposed to be one of it which has been cancelled upon, right? So let's continue further. Still, we'll discuss this just for your reference. Every longitude along with its opposite longitude makes a complete circle around the Earth and another big circle near the equator or at the equator. While the latitude makes a smaller circle, when I say the equator comparatively, and if I talk about the poles in that case, so the latitudes are making a smaller circle along with the poles joining to the other poles, and the equator and the longitudinal lines around the Earth ideally are referred to as a great circle, one of the biggest circle amongst the entire Earth. Right? That's for 1 mark. Again, need not pay much attention to it as it has been omitted in the recent reductions. Second question, of course, when it comes to international data, this is very much still there in our syllabus. So we will be looking at that too. International dateline, that is the IDL, deviates and goes zigzag near some islands in the Pacific Ocean. So international dateline is not a straight line, but it deviates in order to classify some scattered islands. Now, when I say some scattered island means, for example, if you go to Pacific Ocean, there are many islands which are supposed to be quite scattered, right? So looking at that, considering that fact, they have eventually made it zigzag. So it is basically being kept in any one of the particular divisions of the hemisphere. Can be on the western side or can be on the eastern side. Why is this done? This is done so that the day and the time can be calculated according to that line, as the natural position of the islands would have been haphazard. So that would have been creating a lot of confusion. Imagine if the same island would be having an international dayline passing over it. 2 ends of the island would have been having a confusion what date to be followed. So for that reason, it's a zigzag. So any one of the hemispheres, the islands can belong to, right? All right, let's come to the sea. All right, another good part about this that even the calculation of time ideally is cancelled in your recent updation of the syllabus, which has been done due to coronavirus pandemic. Nevertheless, we still discuss this, how the entire calculation is done. But just to remind you, this is not there anymore. So you may not bother yourself in upcoming examinations for this answer, right? So the question is, calculate the time at Durban, okay, longitude is 30 degrees east, when the time is 7 a.m. at New York and its longitude is given as 75 degrees west. So what we've done is meridian of Durban, which was already mentioned as 30 degrees east. We know the fact that the information is given. Standard meridian of New York is 75 degrees west. Time in New York is 7 a.m. So looking at that, what all information we have, we've kept it on the left hand side of one of the sides. Okay, in between we have the 0 degrees, which is nothing but your prime meridian. And if you compare New York and if I compare Durban, which is towards South Africa, so we find that it is towards the eastern side. So that is how 30 degrees east we have. Now let's understand. So over here is 75 degrees west and 30 degrees east. Let's add the longitudes. So it comes up to 105. Okay, there are 105 longitudes total. Likewise, a 1 degree meridian, the sun takes 4 minutes to cover 1 degree meridian. In that case, if it's supposed to be 105, we'll be easily getting 7 hours when you calculate it in terms of minutes. Again, then you have to convert it into hours. Since Durban lies to the east of the New York, time difference has to be added, because if I have to go towards the Durban, but obviously I have to go ahead in time. So that is how 7 plus 7, okay, that will be giving me 14 hours because it is 7 a.m. plus another 7 hours more. So that will be giving me 14 hours. That is nothing but, when I convert it into time, 14 hours is nothing but 1400 hours is nothing but your 2 p.m. So that is what your answer is all about. Again, even if you've not understood, there is a problem out there. I hope this has made you understand. But nevertheless, don't bother because it's no more there in our syllabus. So you may skip upon this part, right? So let's go to the D question now. Midday suns can be seen overhead in Chennai twice a year, but not even once in Delhi. Why? So the answer, as you can see out there, Tropic of Cancer is in the northernmost limit of the overhead sun. Sun rays do not fall vertical beyond 23.5 degrees north latitude. Now we know the fact this is 23.5 degrees. Delhi lies above that. So when Delhi is located north of Tropic of Cancer, so the sun is never overhead at Delhi, because at the most it can reach up to is 23.5 degrees, that is Tropic of Cancer. But if you consider Tropic of Cancer, just below that you have Chennai. So Chennai has an overhead sun twice a year. First, when the sun is moving northwards from equator to the Tropic of Cancer, the sun will be overhead at Chennai. When the sun is shifting from the Tropic of Cancer back to the equator, again Chennai will be experiencing overhead sun. So that's how, if you point out these, or if you list down these points, that's where you get 3 marks for it, right? So let's go to the third question, children. All right, now coming to the third one, just second. All right, so first is mention any 2 possible consequences if the axis of the earth was vertical instead of inclined. So if the axis of the earth instead of being inclined would have been vertical, first, all the places on the earth, their lengths of the day and night would have been equal. That is 12 hours of day and 12 hours of night. They would have been getting equally. Okay, but right now you must be knowing that there are selective places which are receiving longer days, shorter nights during summer season, and during winter season they have longer nights and shorter days. So that phenomena probably wouldn't have been happening. Second, of course, there wouldn't be any change in the season because constantly everything is supposed to be receiving the same amount of heat. Every place is supposed to be experiencing the same weather conditions on a daily basis. So there wouldn't be any seasonal changes, not even in North Pole or South Pole. So yes, if hypothetically vertical condition would have been there, then probably these 2 conditions would have been happening. But we know the fact that it's not the fact. It's indeed the fact that Earth indeed is inclined at an axis of 23.5 degrees, right? All right, let's go to the next question, children. The next question is, what is twilight and how does it occur? So let me just go back to this question. The faint light which illuminates the various parts of the earth, okay, before sunrise and sunset is called as twilight. Twilight occurs due to the reflection of the sun's light from the upper layers of the atmosphere on the earth, while the sun itself is below the horizon. The duration of twilight at the place depends upon the path of the sun in the sky. And accordingly, you get to see the illumination and you also get to see twilight, right? Next question, C1. Why we always see the sun rising in the east? And I'll read out the second question also. Why Norway is called the land of the midnight sun? So these are the 2 answers to it. The first one, as the earth is also moving from west to east, it is the eastern part which gets under the sun first and it gets lighted first. And that's the reason why we see the east side gets the first sunrise, because they are receiving the first rays of the sun, and that's how the day starts from the east and then ends at the west. Second, why Norway is called as the land of midnight sun. So our northern part of Norway is beyond the Arctic Circle, where the sunlight remains constant for 6 months, right from March to September. So it is called as the land of midnight sun due to sunlight seen at night too. That is, even if you go at night 12 o'clock, 12 a.m. also, it will be still, sun will be seen in the, like you'll be seeing the sun, not that bright as such, but sun will be seen. And that is how it's still daylight out there. Not sunlight is still seen out there, right? All right, children, let's come to the next question. Differentiate between the vernal equinox and autumnal equinox. That's another 2-mark question. So first, the sun appears to stand still on the Tropic of Capricorn and then appears to move northwards towards the equator. When I say the sun appears to stand still on the Tropic of Capricorn, we're talking about southern hemisphere, and then it appears to move to another northwards towards the equator. Now this usually occurs on the 21st of March. Likewise, if you see, the sun appears to move southwards and crosses the equator. Okay, and this autumnal equinox will be experienced in northern hemisphere, and this occurs on September 23rd. Now, whatever we are seeing it from a northern hemisphere's point of view right now, right? So these 2 points will fetch you another 2 marks. So children, looking at that, indeed the paper was quite simple. If you have gone through the textbook once, and if you've gone through RoboMate as well, believe me, all your doubts will be cleared upon. I would suggest, in case if you haven't done it, please go ahead and do that, and that will actually help you a lot, right? So with this, we will end our paper discussion of model answer, and I'll see you next time. Thank you, and all the very best. Bye.